Hello and welcome back, Eddie Radosovich. George Stoya here from the SoonerScoop.com studios. Welcome back on Campus Quarter, as we always are. A big week here.
Huge week.
I guess in a way, kind of close everything down from this week. And then we move into what is the first game week of the season. It has arrived, Mr. Stoya.
Yeah, it's super exciting. It's going to be a little bit different next week than what a normal game would look like, just because of the game being on Friday. So everything's moved up. Brent Venables will speak on Monday. Typically, he'll speak on Tuesday, but he'll speak on Monday, which means we'll be doing our recruiting report on Sunday at some point. Practice report on Monday, and then our game day preview will be on Wednesday. Now, that'll all change once they get back into their normal routine. But, yeah, big week. Kind of our last week of I don't know about rest, Eddie, because I don't think either of us have been resting.
No, it's been busy around here.
Kind of our last free weekend, I would say, until really, I guess, January.
It'll be a good practice run on Saturday to wake up, be able to turn on college football game day.
Yeah.
Obviously, they're over in Dublin for the Florida State-Georgia Tech game, and then go immediately back to bed as we kick off the college football season with week 0. I believe 4 games on Saturday. So Michael Fasusi committed to Oklahoma on Wednesday. Josh and I were down at Louisville High School yesterday. You can catch our instant reaction right here on the SoonerScoop.com YouTube channel. And that's kind of where we get to today, talking about some of the players that we spoke with on Monday. Obviously, we talked about Brent Venables and everything he had to say on Monday. Or
it's Tuesday.
Tuesday. I keep doing that. My days are
our whole schedule's been messed up because we did the unofficial 40 today.
Yeah.
Next week, the schedule's going to be different. All the days are running together.
They are all running together, which means it is football season. The one constant in all of this, plenty of coverage on SoonerScoop.com. A really good time to join SoonerScoop.com for you out there in YouTube world. Good promo going on right now as well. $1 for 2 months. Membership to SoonerScoop.com. Obviously, with the On3 network, Steve Wiltfong and everybody that was a part of J.D. Piquel, everybody that was a part of the live stream yesterday for Michael Fasusi's commitment, that was really cool. So all you got to do is hit SoonerScoop.com, promo code OU1, as you see on the television screen behind me. 2 months, $1. Pretty simple. Ya poors. All right, let's get into everything that was said. We talked to a couple guys that are rather interesting on the defensive side of the ball. We talked to them on Monday or on Tuesday. I'll get it right. I was there, I promise. But the first guy that we're going to kind of feature or focus on, Gracen Halton.
Yep.
And I think that is a position, especially on the interior of Todd Bates' defensive line group, that when you talk about guys that are returning, I think that, DJ Terry's obviously the first name that comes to mind. But if you're going to move past Dominic Williams, obviously one of the returning lettermen from a year ago, Gracen Halton.
Yeah, he's a guy that I think a lot of us think can have a big year, and he's shown flashes. I remember his freshman year, he showed a few flashes. Last year, he was in the rotation to start the year, and then kind of moved out of it towards the end of the year. I think he's a guy that they believe in his third year now, he can be a big-time contributor. Now, does that mean that he's a starter? I don't think so, right? But I do think that he's squarely in that maybe that top 4-man rotation, and he's a guy that I think can bring a different element. I've said this a few times on the show, but DJ Terry, Dominic Williams, Jaden Jackson, those are your run stuffers. Gracen Halton, I think, can be a great pass rusher. So it was good to talk to him. I think that he's certainly matured. I think he's kind of maybe, DJ Terry's the leader of that room. I would say Dominic Williams is probably right there too. But Gracen Halton, I think, has kind of maybe stepped up as a veteran voice in that room. And you can tell just talking to him. And he's always been a joy to talk to. He just has a great personality. I know I like talking to him back in the spring too. But you can just tell, I think he's matured a lot. And I think he has big expectations for himself this year.
11 tackles, 3.5 tackles for loss a year ago. And, just going through the tape from last year, it seems like he was one of those guys that if you stuck around in the second half and he got into the game, it always seemed like he was around the football.
Yeah.
He had a really good game against West Virginia in the second half. I thought he was really good in the red-white spring game. How much can you take out of that? And, the line that he was going up against, I'm not sure. But it was a step in the right direction, a much-needed improvement, or a much-needed step in the right direction just in terms of he had a really good spring, and it sounds like he's kind of built onto that, what he's been able to do here during the preseason.
He's been really good in fall camp. From everything that I've heard is that he's been really standing out. He's been in the backfield a lot, making plays, primarily in the passing game. And that's where I think you're going to see him. You're going to see him a lot of times, in third down situations where the team's going to be throwing the football. So I'm excited to see what he can do because, again, we're going to talk about several of these type of guys, but there's guys on this team, especially on the defensive side of the ball, where you're like, I like their potential. We haven't seen it a ton, but I really like the potential. And Gracen Halton definitely falls into that category.
Certainly talking like a guy that is ready to take on a bigger role in the defense this season. Here is Gracen Halton.
Loving it. It's a lot of work to do. Long season ahead. But, those guys got a good head on their shoulders, so they know the hard work it takes to understand the playbook and, just getting prepared. They've done a great job. And myself, just studying every day. The guys, the young guys is doing a great job staying ahead and just being great on the field.
Like, how much better of an understanding do you have now of working with Bates and what he's trying to ask you to do?
Oh, better understanding, from last year, just going over the mistakes that I made last year, technical issues, just fixing them and being better.
If you put it on a percentage basis of comparing to how you played last year to what you're expecting to play now, are you 10% better, 20% better, or how do you look at it?
This is a very humbling question, but I'll say from last year, I'll give it about 40%, so I'll say about another 40, so 80% total, ready to go. Once the season starts, I'll be 100.
You talked about the young guys. Anything jump out at you about those guys in fall camp so far?
Oh yeah, all of them. David Stone, Jaden Jackson, all the other guys. They want to be on the field. So they're pushing the older guys. Because you wouldn't want to see a young guy in your spot. So they're pushing the older guys. To be better.
How different is someone like Dominic Williams now compared to just a couple months ago?
Just staying aboard. He's done a great job when he first stepped on campus. He was already bought into the playbook, knowing what to do. So he's just stacking days, getting better.
George, what? Go ahead.
I was going to say, just one interesting thing about, hearing him talk about Todd Bates. I thought that was a really interesting point because you think back, he was a late addition in that class, right? And I think that it was after Brent and his staff came, right? Like they offered him, I think, late, and they added him to that class late. And I think of Grayson as kind of that first guy that, under Todd Bates, can he develop him into a player that maybe people weren't thinking about? I think he was a pretty underrated guy, 3-star guy. I think they were just looking to add a body almost to that class. And I think that he's somebody that, if we look up in a couple years and he's all of a sudden getting drafted or having a great career at Oklahoma, that's something, just a feather that you can put in Todd Bates' cap. I don't know. I just thought that was interesting. Yeah. It's like, sometimes, you expect a David Stone or Jaden Jackson to come in right away and be a superstar or a contributor in some ways. And I think everybody has a different path. I don't know if that's cliche to say, but I do think that Grayson, it takes some time, and maybe this is a year that he really kind of explodes onto the scene.
Kind of seems like it's going to be much needed. Obviously, Jaden Jackson, we've heard great things about him here during the preseason, but at the same time, he is a true freshman. It would just be nice if you had that extra body with a little bit of experience that you could throw in there, not necessarily alongside DJ Terry or Dominic Williams, who, seem to be kind of the lead guys in that group, but they need somebody, whether it be a Gracen Halton or an Ashton Sanders, who is, it sounds like, had a pretty good camp. And then obviously David Stone and Jaden Jackson. I think everybody's excited to see them out on the field next Friday.
Yeah, I'm really curious to see what that rotation is because, like I said, I think you kind of know the top four. We mentioned those guys a lot, but does David Stone get in there a lot? And I think David Stone's a guy that you play a lot early in these non-conference games, see what he's able to do, let him get some reps because he is such a raw talent and does certain things. I think he's a guy that just needs to play a lot of football. And so I'm interested to see how many I think he'll play a lot, like in the Temple game, right? Like I could see him playing almost the entire second half. And Ashton Sanders, too, who, was a freshman a year ago. Is that right? Was he a freshman last year?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah. So, he hasn't played a lot. So, get him some reps. Even a Devon Sears, a guy that
he's another one of those, kind of forgotten guys.
Yeah.
Right?
There's just so many guys at that spot that you're like, okay, that's a nice player, but we haven't seen it yet. Sure. And so I think you're going to see early in the season them rotate through a lot of guys.
Somebody we will be getting our first look at in an Oklahoma uniform is Caiden Woullard, who comes in from Miami of Ohio. And I think we've talked about him here in the last couple of weeks just in terms of, okay, what is this guy?
Yep.
But when you look at the numbers from last year, this is what he did at Miami of Ohio. 41 tackles, 12 tackles for loss, 9.5 sacks, a pass breakup, 2 forced fumbles, 9 quarterback hurries, 2 block kicks. The guy's obviously a pretty good football player. I don't care if it's at the MAC level or wherever it's at.
If he did half of that this year for Oklahoma, that'd be a great productive season. I mean, I think back to, a guy like Rondell Bothroyd last year, who I thought was going to be much more of an impact player. Mm-hmm. And he played a lot for Oklahoma, and I know he did a lot of the dirty work, but you look at his stats, he didn't have the stats to maybe back up what was maybe a more productive season. I think Kaden Woillard can go out and make some game-changing plays. Sure. Like I think he's a guy on the edge. You look at his size. I mean, what's he listed at? It's like 6'3", 6'4", 260 something. I mean, he's one of their biggest.
6'4", 259 technically.
Wow.
He told us on Monday he is up to 260 though.
I mean, and just talking to him the other night, like he's a big dude, and so. You bring his length, his athleticism on the side. Look, he's not PJ Adebayo out there. He's the same measurables, but I do think he's a big body that you can trust out there. I think he does have a little bit of twitch. Again, maybe not as much twitch as an R. Mason Thomas or PJ, but I think he can end up being a really, really productive player for Oklahoma, and it sounds like he's had a really good fall camp. I know he's been pushing for maybe that other starting spot across from Ethan Downs, who obviously has his spot locked up, and I think it's going to be R. Mason Thomas at the other side. But Caiden Wouldard's had a really, really good fall camp, and I think he's going to play a lot.
A veteran presence there in a room that might be Oklahoma's most experience when you're talking about, Trace Ford's in there, obviously.
Yep.
Ethan Downs, it seems like, has been playing football at Oklahoma for the last 5 years. And then, as you said, R. Mason. And I think that's kind of that guy that everybody is focused on. Like, okay, is he ready to make that next step?
Yeah, I mean, I think I said on the unofficial 40 today that he just seems like a guy that could be a huge difference maker. His twitch on the edge, like they need somebody kind of like an Oboe a few years ago that can just beat somebody one-on-one. I think Kaden Wouillard's in that same conversation. Sure. Like I really think
he talked on Monday, and we'll hear in a second, just in terms of like the one thing that he really prides himself on is getting off the football. And at 260, if you can get off the football, obviously with the tackles that they're going up against in once you get into conference play, it's going to be a little bit of a different story, but same thing.
I think it's two different types of pass rushers, right? Like R. Mason Thomas is going to beat you with his speed, right off the jump. And I think Caiden has a good jump, but he's also extremely strong. Like he might be their strongest guy at defensive end, him and Ethan Downs. So like I think they do it different ways, but however you do it doesn't matter. If you can get to the quarterback, you can get to the quarterback. And I think Kaiden Woillard, again, there's several guys that you could say, oh, they're going to lead the team in sacks, and I would put Kaiden Woillard in that category.
It's the name of the game. Getting the quarterback here is Kaiden Woillard, talking about just his experience going through spring, learning under Miguel Chavis, and obviously getting ready for his first season in Norman.
Great, as expected. The whole group had a great fall camp. As DNs, the whole defense had a great camp, and it was definitely tough going from mid-major to SEC Oklahoma, but it was a learning journey. Oh, my bad. It was a learning journey and a step-by-step process, so it went great.
Beyond the obvious, what are some of the major differences that you've had to cope with and deal with coming from Miami to here?
A lot more physicality. Like I said, our O-line is great. The whole defense is great, and just going against like better competition. Honestly, players are faster, stronger, and like I said, the physicality is different. So.
Do you find yourself thinking that as well as you got after the quarterback at Miami, is that something that can transfer here, you feel?
Yeah, I definitely do think that because Coach Chavis has prepared me well, and he's taught me new things here so far. So I think it'll transfer well, and as long as I believe in myself and I'm confident in myself, I think it'll transfer.
Is that a technique thing at this level? Once you get against better competition?
Oh, my bad. I'm sorry. I definitely say technique. You have to do the little things right. You have to do every little thing right. So yeah.
Will things slow down mentally as you digest a ton of playbook stuff like that as you got further to the fall?
A little bit, but yeah. From the spring, it was a little bit harder because I'm the new guy, but just studying my stuff, being on top of everything, that helped me a lot. And the game slowed down. I'm able to play faster, and So.
What's it been like just learning from that? It's a veteran group at that D, and I'm sure Ethan took you under his wing, but learning from R. Mason and a bunch of those guys, just picking their brain.
Yeah, they've helped me a lot because they know what they're doing 100% of the time. They rarely ever mess up, and that's like they've helped me a lot. Like if I have any questions, they're on it. So They've done a good job helping the younger guys as well, because I learn a little faster since I've been here, done that for 3 years. But yeah, they've done a great job.
Has the experience of getting coached by Miguel Chavis matched what your expectations were coming here?
Yeah, they do. Like, ever since the first day I met him, I could tell he was just very intense and about his business. So I'd say he actually what's the word? He exceeded expectations. So, but I expected him to be, a lot of juice, a little bit crazy, but yeah, he exceeded expectations.
Got a chuckle out of Myron Patton coming out of nowhere. The great Myron Patton. First team All-MAC selection a year ago, 38 games at Miami of Ohio. He's one of those guys, if you were putting a list together of guys that I feel like is a little bit of an unknown just in terms of making that jump, he's probably on that list, but I'm super intrigued to see him out there.
Yeah, it's again, those portal guys, I think we get caught up a lot of times in, Deion Burks and all the offensive linemen they added, and we forget that they went out and got a super productive player in a guy like Caiden Woullard or a Des Malone, right? Like, I feel like we forget about Des Malone and how, important he was to that portal class. So, it was funny. I was watching that clip, and you had the clip of Miguel talking to the guys at Bedlam, and you're like, man, they had Ethan Downs, Rondell Bothroyd, and Trace Ford, and that was kind of it last year at defensive end. Like,
PJ
R. Mason
here and there.
Yeah,
right?
R. Mason was hurt. He didn't play a whole lot. PJ was, very limited in terms of, like, you could tell they didn't fully trust him yet to kind of grasp what they were asking him to do. And I was like, man, this year's group, you feel a lot better about it, especially if R. Mason is healthy. You bring in like a guy like Kaden Woillard, who, again, I think is going to be very consistent. And then PJ, who's just going to continue to get better and better with the more he plays. And Trace Ford. Like, I feel like we don't talk about Trace Ford enough. And I'm not saying Trace Ford's going to go out there and be a dominant player, but if he's your fourth or fifth guy in that defensive end room, you've probably got a pretty good, defensive end room.
Another one of those guys that has played a ton of college football.
Yeah, it's kind of like Casey Thompson. You know, it's like it's just a luxury to have a guy like that on your roster.
Yeah, it's checking off all those boxes, right?
Yep.
All right, one of the guys, we'll talk about Bauer Sharp here in a second, but do want to tell you about one of my favorite things that is around here at the office, and that is this football right here. This thing is a beaut. All you got to do is go to Big Game Football Factory, biggameusa.com/scoop, biggameusa.com/scoop. I don't know the differences. Come on, give me a break. Cut me a break here. Big Game Football Factory. This thing is awesome, though. This is the official OU football that they will be using this year. You can see the SEC logo on the side. Can you see that? Yeah, you can see that. Just making sure.
I just it looks so clean, the OU and SEC logo, and you see that same logo, around campus now and all that. But it's just such a super nice football, and it's cool to see the photos. I think I said this last show. It's just cool to see the photos with the guys with the football. Yeah, and now you can have it in your own home.
You can literally have it in your home, and you get your own card of authenticity. How about that?
Wow, you've been practicing.
How about that? I did it, didn't I? But yes, all you got to do, just go to, once again, biggameusa.com/scoop if you want to get one of those. And that's like a perfect thing to put in the dude room.
Yeah, bring it to your tailgate.
Absolutely.
Throw the ball around. I mean, how cool would that be? People walking up to your tailgate and you've got the official game ball.
Yeah, and you'll pick it off. And then maybe just sneak it into the stadium and throw it out into the middle of the field.
Yeah.
That'd be awesome.
That'd be sick.
Don't do that. And if you do, say it was George Stoya's idea, not mine.
Eddie will catch it, though. He'll be ready for it.
I will catch it. I have great hands. I've said that every week. All right, let's talk offensive side of the ball. We talked to Bauer Sharp for the first time here during the preseason, George, and I think that we don't have to rehash everything that this tight end room has been, I guess, reimagined or reformed or transformed, whatever you want to call it. But when you're talking about the tight end position moving into this season, it just seems like you continually hear that Bauer Sharp does something at practice every day.
Yeah, I think his athleticism, his ability to block as well has really stood out. Like, he's a guy that really fits what they want to do at tight end, which is a little bit of everything. And, I think he's super physical. He hasn't played the position for very long. I think this is only his third year playing tight end. He was a former quarterback. Sure. So I think he's really smart. And you hear that when he talks about being a former quarterback and kind of understanding concepts and knowing where the ball needs to go, or understanding where, he can find openings when running routes and things like that. So I thought that was really interesting. Sounds like him and Jackson Arnold have built a pretty tight chemistry, but I anticipate, like, when they went out and got Jake Roberts, I was like, oh, he's their tight end one. Like, he's their guy. He's going to lead the way. I think Bauer Sharp's going to be listed as the number one tight end on the depth chart. I think he's going to be their number one tight end, and I think he's going to make a lot of plays. That doesn't mean Jake Roberts isn't going to play a lot.
Right.
I think they're going to run a lot of two tight sets. I think Jake Roberts will do certain things, and Bauer Sharp will do certain things. I think even Caden Helms can get into the mix, but I definitely think Bauer Sharp could be a big playmaker in this offense.
What do you think the expectations, just in terms of, like, I feel like the tight end position is going to be utilized quite a bit in this offense. I'm just kind of interested, and this might be an unfair question, like, how many receptions would you project the tight end to bring in, and specifically somebody in Bauer Sharp?
Well, how many did Stogner have last year? I think it was like 10 or so. And I want to say Braden Willis the year before, he had a monster year. I think he had
ended up getting drafted.
I think he had over 500 yards receiving, maybe like 8 touchdowns or something. So, if Bauer Sharp can go out this year and have 20 plus receptions, 300 yards receiving, and 3 or 4 touchdowns, I think that'd be a really good year, because I think Jake Roberts could go out and have around 20 receptions, 200 yards receiving, and a couple touchdowns. And then Caden Helms maybe has 100 yards receiving. I think that it's not going to be like one guy just has a huge year.
Sure.
Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Bauer Sharp goes out and wins the Mackey, but I think that you could see Sharp and Roberts both having 200 to 300 yards receiving, which would be so much more than I'm sure you got it pulled up now, but what did Stogner have a year ago?
17 receptions, 196 yards, and a solo touchdown.
See, I would anticipate Bauer Sharp being closer to 25 to 30 receptions, 300 something yards, and maybe like 4 touchdowns. I think that'd be a good year. I don't know, maybe that's too low. But I say that thinking Jake Roberts could also have, more of like what Stogner's stats were.
That's in comparison to Braden Willis, who in 2022, 39 receptions, 514 yards, 7 touchdowns.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great
year.
year.
They used him all around.
Right. And so I think you could see that more, where it's Jake Roberts and Bauer Sharp combining for something that looks similar to that.
Here is Bauer Sharp talking about just kind of his role in the offense, and obviously learning under Joe John Finley in the tight end room.
It's going awesome, just going through fall camp, just stacking days on days. It's been different from what I've been used to, but it's just better to me as a man, better to me as a player. I'm thankful for it. Going hard.
You say different than what you're used to. Maybe how different, or what's made it different or stood out to you?
Just the competition and the practice, just the one-on-ones, just good on good, just how good they make me, our defensive ends, just going against them each and every day, for sure, preparing me for the season.
Sorry, didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah, you're good.
We've had a couple of guys talk about you in the preseason and say you're scrappy and you get after it, and nobody's going to outwork you. Where's that come from in your mind? Where do you get that from?
I continue to say this, that I have a chip on my shoulder just in everything that I do. From what I come from, I mean, I had one offer coming out of high school to play quarterback, and so I got a lot to earn, I got a lot to prove, and I continue to say that each and every day.
How are you feeling about your level of play since you've been here?
I'm feeling great. I say this all the time. I give it to God every day. He's in control. I don't know what the outcome is. I don't know when the outcome is going to be. I just take it day by day and trust my teammates, trust my team that we're going to get it done. Wins.
How helpful has it been having Jake in that room with you, just knowing that he's played in Coach Control's offense before?
Oh, he's awesome. We feed off of each other. He makes me better for sure. I make him better. We love playing with each other. Like I said in the beginning, we feed off of each other, and I learn a lot from him. He learns a lot from me.
What are some of the biggest areas you feel like your game's grown since you arrived here?
I feel like it's just slowed down a little bit. Joe John has helped me a lot in seeing the defense and seeing what D-line does and seeing tendencies and what can help me, and just basic fundamentals and blocking and routes and covers.
This position has evolved the last few years. Last year was one there weren't a lot of throws and catches. You've probably seen prior to that. Where is the offense now? Are you comfortable with what you're getting ready to do and what the tight end is going to be responsible for?
Yeah, I love where just the tight end in today's world is going. You know what I'm saying? I feel like in the past it's been just a big, heavy guy. You know what I'm saying? But I trust that whatever our team has planned for me in the future and for these games, that we'll get it done for our team for sure.
A little bit of a history lesson. There used to be an alley in between like Fuzzies and Sugars,
Oh, yeah.
obviously, that led kind of into the back behind Brothers. Seems like if you were walking down that alley, like that's the type of guy, Bauer Sharp's the type of guy you'd want walking alongside you. Kind of seems like he doesn't have a problem sticking his nose into things.
Definitely.
Which doesn't, like, you look at him and you almost kind of think that Jake Roberts is going to be like the hand in the ground, blocking tight end. I think as long as he continues to develop himself, I'm not too worried about Bauer Sharp blocking.
I have heard that he is one of their most physical guys on the team. Like he is not afraid to hit you, and I think that that's a great quality to have as a tight end. Like I think that they trust him to block. They trust him to run routes. You know, he's a super athletic guy, and you know, growing up in Alabama, he was like a CrossFit like champion or something. I remember I wrote a story back on
Unfamiliar
in the spring.
I'm unfamiliar with the CrossFit community.
But he is like super athletic guy. Obviously played quarterback, and what they used to do with him in high school was he was a running quarterback. He basically was Blake Bell reincarnated in high school, and he you know, just ran for like 1,000 yards or something. So the guy can run, super athletic. I think they like his versatility. Again, they're going to play Jake Roberts a lot too. Yeah. It's just crazy to think how much better that tight end room is this year. Like we talked earlier about the defensive end room and all that. They at least had some dudes. They just had Austin Stogner last year, and you know, we talked a lot about Austin, and like he just didn't bring a whole lot to the offense, but he was the only guy they had. And this year they have two guys that you feel really good about, and Jake Roberts and Bauer Sharp, and then guys like Caden Helms, Caden McIntyre. I mean, Caden Helms is a guy that I've said it before on here. He's had a great fall camp. I think they love what he can do out in the slot. I think they're going to play him a lot in the non-conference, see if he can give them something a little bit different at tight end. So, and then you even got, you know, young guy Devon Mitchell, who
I was going to say, Bauer talked about him at the end of Monday's interview session. It was basically just like, he's going to be a freak. He's extremely strong.
He's just young.
He should be a senior in high school this
year.
year.
Like, you know, give him time. We'll see. Again, he's a guy that I think they'll maybe redshirt him, but you'll see him early in the season. They're going to get him some reps, and maybe they don't redshirt him. Maybe he finds a role on special teams or something. I could see him doing that, but you know, he's eventually going to get there. And the thing about Bauer Sharp too, that I don't know if people realize, he's got another year. So like this isn't his only year in Oklahoma. Jake Roberts, this is his only year, but Bauer Sharp, I mean, unless he goes and wins the Mackey this year, I would fully anticipate him being back next year.
Should be fun to see him and even somebody like a Devon Mitchell here over the next couple years really develop and you know, kind of transform that room into what it should be at Oklahoma.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you look at the great tight ends that have obviously come through Oklahoma. You know, I don't think they have a Jermaine Gresham maybe on roster. Maybe Devon Mitchell could be that. Sure. I know some people have said they think he has that
coming out of high school,
ceiling. But there's been so many. I mean, Mark Andrews. You know, you think of all the great tight ends and how they've utilized them. Even Braden Willis. Like if they can just get that type of production from the tight end room, I think that'd be huge this year.
Trent Smith, all-time legend. Keith Jackson.
They got a bunch of guys.
There's a bunch of guys. All right, really excited about the tight end room coming up this year. And I do think, like, for a young quarterback, I don't know, maybe it's just default in my brain.
Good security blanket.
I always think that that tight end guy and just having somebody you can dump the ball to is extremely
I mean, look at the Chiefs and then what they've – and again, it's hard to compare anybody to Mahomes and Travis Kelce.
Bauer Sharp is about to become Travis Kelce.
I'm not saying that, but I do think that you look at what they do, and he's often become that security blanket and finding creases in different spots. Like I think that the tight end position across football, I mean, you heard Bauer talk about it. Like you're seeing them, you know, teams use them way more often, and I think that Oklahoma wants to do that.
If you did want to take like one gripe, and this means nothing in the grand scheme of things, but maybe add a little bit more weight to that frame, you know, by next season. But obviously we got a long way to go this season. One of the other new faces on the offensive side of the football is, you know, I think it's kind of come as a little bit of a surprise coming out of the spring. And we're speaking of Michael Tarquin. And it sounds like right now he could end up being one of the starting tackles for this football team.
I think he is going to be the starting left tackle on the depth chart, and I think he'll be the starting left tackle come August 30th. We'll see. You know, I know Jacob Sexton is still taking some reps over there at left tackle with Heath Ozida playing that left guard spot, but Tarquin's done a good enough job to win that job, and so you know, I think he's going to play a lot this year. I think they think that he's very consistent. I think he's, you know, maybe a little limited athletically, but you know, and he's certainly not Anton Harrison out there, or Orlando Brown, but I do think that he can get the job done. And he's a very physical guy, played a lot for USC and Florida before he came to Oklahoma. So very experienced. And I think he's maybe taken on a little bit of a leadership role in that room. Kind of a quiet guy, almost standoffish.
You say that, and you'll watch the video here in a second. He seems like a guy, just kind of the way that he carries himself, doesn't have a problem speaking up amongst his teammates.
Yeah, no, I don't think so either. And it's funny because he originally, was recruited by Bill Bedenbaugh to come to Oklahoma. And so I think he has that relationship with Bill. And he does strike me, like we always say, oh, that's a Bill Bedenbaugh guy. Like Michael Tarquin's a Bill Bedenbaugh guy.
Yeah, kind of maybe not rough around the edges, but another guy that
he's definitely a little rough.
It doesn't seem like he would have a problem sticking his head into the middle of maybe a little bit of a melee on campus corner. Here is Michael Tarquin talking about the adjustments that have been made throughout the summer, working with Jerry Schmidt, and then obviously now into the fall with Bill Bedenbaugh.
I would just say change my body. Schmidt has an outstanding program. I put on a lot of weight. I'd say this is the biggest, strongest I've been. And, I can feel it in my play. It's probably the biggest thing.
What is the biggest thing that's different here than where it was previously?
I think the biggest thing that's that stands out the most to me is the culture. I think Coach Venables has done an amazing job with that. Coach Venables, Coach Schmidt, and then obviously all the position coaches, Coach Bedenbaugh, etc. I think ultimately it's the culture and how everyone's on board with the same goal in mind.
How much of that did you get a feel for before you got here, and what was maybe some of the surprises for you in that regard since you've arrived?
I wouldn't say there's any surprises. I think I kind of knew what it was going to be before I got here, and that's ultimately why I wanted to come here.
Does it make it easier at all when you're rebuilding an offensive line basically, but you have so many guys that have played a lot of snaps?
Yeah, absolutely. Having a lot of guys that have a ton of experience, it helps not only us be on the same page, but it also helps us be good leaders and help the young guys, help develop them, and then ultimately, like I said earlier, the chemistry has been huge, and I think that's going to help us a lot in being really good this year.
You kind of had to be maybe looking for it, but the comparison of culture from here in the Mecca out on the West Coast, I don't know, interesting.
Yeah, I definitely think it's a little bit different.
You should have been more specific. Compare and contrast Jerry Schmidt's workout program to the CrossFit workout that you did last year with Benny Wiley.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm opening the door if you want to take any shot.
No, I mean,
I'm already blocked by everybody out there, so it doesn't matter to me.
Look, I know a lot of people with Michael Tarquin look back at what happened at USC last year, and they say, oh, well, Michael Tarquin was a part of that. And I think at one point Tarquin got benched, partway through that season, but I think there was a lot of issues going out in Southern California, and so I'm not going to pin that on him. I do know that he was a really good player at times for USC early in that season. I know he's also a really good player at Florida at times. Played a little bit of different spots, and so I think that he's played a lot of football. And I think that, again, he's not going to come in and be Orlando Brown at left tackle, but I do think he can be pretty good. And listen, Bill Bedenbaugh's one of the best in the biz, maybe the best in the business. And if he thinks Michael Tarquin can be their starting left tackle in the SEC, then I'll take his word for it.
Another one of those guys that when you're talking about transfer portal additions, a lot of experience, as you said, at Florida, and then obviously last year out at USC.
Yeah, I think that, again, they're going to try and find guys that have a lot of talent, and maybe at the end of the year it looks different and they end up playing a younger guy at left tackle, or they move Sexton out to left tackle. But I think to start the year, they're going to lean on the experience of these guys and, what they did in fall camp. And, Michael Tarquin was really good in fall camp, and I think that's because of his experience, how much football he has played. I think he's a fifth-year guy. This is his fifth or sixth year in college football, so he's been around the block. I knew he hasn't been here in Norman, but he's been around the block. He's been at two other major programs in college football, and so I think they just kind of are going to lean on that, and I think that goes for the other positions. I think that Garen Hatchett's going to see the field some this year because he's played a lot of football. Fabechi Wiwu, he's going to play a lot because he's played a lot of football. I think all those guys, Branson Hickman, right? If he's healthy, he's going to play a lot because he's played a lot of football. That doesn't mean they don't like the younger guys, but I think that it gives them a little bit more time.
This will be his sixth year.
Wow. So he's been around
in college football. He redshirted at Florida in 2019. So he's played a ton. He's been around the program, or he's been at least around big programs quite often.
Yeah.
It'll be fun to see how this will all come together here over the next week. Obviously, Oklahoma opening the season a week from Friday, a week from tomorrow. as the season will actually get underway. And that's going to do it for the preseason portion of all these practice reports. The next time that we speak to you out there on the SoonerScoop.com YouTube channel will be coming up on Sunday, Recruiting Report Sunday. So I was about to lie to you. I was about to straight up lie to you, and that's a sin on my part. I'll go to confession on Wednesday. We will talk to Brent Venables, though, and then we'll get into game week, which is kind of wild to think that this thing is already here.
I know I said it on the podcast today, but it felt like the summer was going by really fast, and then once they got to fall camp, it was like every day was just kind of a slog because it was just like, let's just get, because the narratives are running wild about the team, and we went through the whole Jackson Arnold thing, which seems every year the quarterback isn't good enough.
Now it seems like that was like months ago, and it was last week.
And so it's like we've been through it all. Like let's just play a game. Like I'm just ready for them to get out there and finally play a football game.
No doubt. George is going 3-9. I'm going 12-0. So you decide who your favorite reporter is on this thing. All right, George, appreciate it. We will talk to you guys out there on the SoonerScoop.com YouTube channel on Sunday. A advanced or I guess early portion of the recruiting report with Josh McCuistion, and then we'll be in game week. So we will talk to you then.